afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to an afternoon at the Beach Institute. I'm so happy to have in my presence here pastors from Savannah, Georgia here. And so we are recording this for the Beach Institute for us to reflect on the great wisdom that's about to be set forth here. So I welcome you as Executive Director of the Beach Institute. And I should just say, if you hear some background noise, it's because we are a working museum. And look at that, and everybody, silence your phones, everybody, silence your phones. Oh, come on in. We met last night. I think, you know what, I think I met you before last night also. Thank you for coming, thank you for coming. And so for the sake of the video, I'm just gonna ask everyone to introduce themselves and where you pastor, what your work is, anything that you wanna offer in terms of who you are and the nature of your ministry.
Well, my name is Lester Foster. I'm the pastor of St. Mary's Community Church, located at 2208 East Gwinnett Street in Savannah, Georgia. I've been in the ministry about 49 years, been counting close to 40 years.
Keep going.
My name is Bernard Clark. I pastor St. Philip Monumental AME Church here in the city of Savannah, Georgia. One of the St. Philip, and of course, it is the mother church of African Methodism, First Church of African Methodism here in Savannah. I'm also a high school teacher, 35 years in the ministry and 34 years teaching high school. I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you. As an educator, I can certainly appreciate that you are a teacher and a minister. My goodness.
Yes.
My goodness. Reverend Prater?
Yes, I am Jonetta Prater, pastor of the Saving Church in Midway, Georgia. I've been in ministry for somewhat about 35 years. I have an earned doctorate degree in ministry from the United Theological Institute in Dayton, Ohio.
I know it. I'm from Cincinnati.
All right.
Reverend?
Good afternoon. My name is C.J. Holland, Dr. C.J. Holland. I am the senior pastor of the St. Philip Church of the Lord, right here in Poston City, called Savannah, Georgia. I am a graduate of IITC 2012, Master of Divinity, also earned doctorate at Penn Theological Seminary. I've been in Savannah now for 3 years, but I used to go to Savannah State. I'm a Savannah State alumni. Getting ready to talk about homecoming. I'm very excited to be here and look forward to this meeting of the minds, if you will.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Charles Dumas, Pastor Charles Dumas Jr. I'm the pastor of Townview Chapel AME Church, 252 Eagle Street, where the Eagles soar high. I am beginning my 11th year at Townsley. I'm also a graduate of Turner Seminary at the ITC class of 2011, the best class that ever matriculated at the ITC ever. I also am a chaplain for hospice. I work for the Pruitt Health Company, Pruitt Health, and so we're excited about our work here in Savannah, and we're excited to be here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. And so this conversation is about the Black church. Although I should say that we use that term as if it's a monolith, but we know that we are a diverse people. But for the sake of our conversation, I will be saying the Black church or the churches in Black communities. And so I wanted to have this conversation about activism, the role of activism, because, well, a number of things, but one in particular is the times in which we live now, the political times in which we live, culturally and socially as well. And our people are particularly impacted by let's just say, a conservative administration. And we would likely agree that our communities are impacted in ways that are terrifying, should I say. And so as a scholar of religion myself, so I did not introduce myself other than to say I'm executive director here, but I also have master's and doctorate in cultural and historical studies of religion. I've taught religion, African-American religion, American religions for 20 years. I continue to teach online, and so I am immersed in the field. And so I think about these things. I think about, what is historically, what do we say is the milieu out of which the Black church emerged, Black ministry. And then if we look between that time, if we call it the plantation era, and we say, okay, between the plantation era and now, 2025, almost 2026, do we even expect it to be the same, to look the same, right? And so I would say no. Over different decades, over different times, the response has to be different, even though the threat itself, we could say the threat itself is always white supremacy. The threat itself is always a violent backlash against Black people affirming our own humanity in multiple ways. Okay, so then if we say, well, who are the leaders in our communities? And I think we can agree that largely our ministers are our leaders. Okay, so what role do the leaders, our ministers, take on, consciously or not, step into when you say that I am going to lead a church, I am going to lead my community? What does that look like? And so I don't want it to be a formal kind of thing, right? This is not a quiz, this is not class, but I would really like to hear from you based upon your own experiences, right? You have a wealth of experiences and knowledge and education, practical, time in the ministry. What does it look like now? And in particular, I said, okay, well, I'm just not gonna let everybody just talk. So let's have some sort of starting questions or some framework. And so I thought I would pick something rather inflammatory. I'll just tell you right off. And if you read the email that I sent out, right, it's about a statement made by Professor Eddie Glaude, Princeton professor. And in 2010, he wrote an article for the Huffington Post, and he said, the Black church is dead. Now, of course, that met with a lot of feedback and pushback and all of that. And then, he went on to say, of course, I don't mean the Black church across the board is dead, it doesn't exist, and that there aren't ministers doing good work. We had a very particular way that he meant that, which was to say there's been a certain element that has come along and hijacked the liberative core in which the Black church emerged. If we can say that the Black church emerged with an idea about liberation, affirming the humanity of Black people. Okay, now if we are at a time where that does not seem to be the core ways in which Black ministers are moving, does that mean that the Black church is dead? And in particular, he pointed to prosperity gospel. He pointed to this union between capitalism and the gospel. And he said those two things can't hold together. You can't be an advocate for capitalism and preach the gospel that Jesus left us. So I'm going to let y'all have at it with that. And so maybe you want to jump in with any part of that. And I don't want to even go in order. I just want it to be really free-flowing conversation among us.
We're all of us are familiar with Professor Glaude, and we tend to hope that since then he's changed his mind somewhat. Because when you look at 2010, to have that conversation or to make that statement was a very bold move.
Mm-hmm.
In that, in 2008, Barack Obama had won the election. And most of us who are familiar with politics, not only of the world, but the church, would like to think that the church was a big part of Barack Obama winning that particular election. not the only part. We realized that we could not have done it, without the help of others, everyone.
Right.
But it certainly was a success. And so, with that, that's just me, stating that, of course, the church certainly, I don't believe it's dead now, it certainly wasn't dead then.
Right, thank you, thank you. Yes, it's necessary, right, Barack Obama, he said, the church in Chicago, Jeremiah, right? Trinity, right? And we know this, right? We know that any politician, they are going to appeal to the authority of the Black church. They are going to show up in our spaces, right?
Including our, general conference,
Exactly.
with all of the candidates in the visit.
Come on.
And so, we are, were and still are very consciously and cautiously, aware of the fact that the church still served us a wonderful, time then, and it served wonderfully now for us.
Anyone else?
I wouldn't say that the Black church is dead. I would say, though, there have been some assassination attempts to the Black church.
Wow.
A few years ago when Reverend Warnock and John Russell were elected, and Savannah was very impactful of their success. When the church was behind that with the souls to the polls, and after the souls of the polls were so successful, then the other side tried to assassinate that and tried to stop that because they saw the power of what the Black church could do that could impact future elections. So, no, the church is not dead, but there have been some assassinations.
I love that, because that's really powerful. Yeah.
And I believe the Black church, that's awesome, Reverend Dumas. I believe that the Black church really possesses the spirit of the living God. And when I say that, the Black church possesses the spirit of our African traditions. And our African traditions concept of time is very different from the Westernized concept. So I think the Black church may be stagnant in some areas, but it's not dead. I know that the Black church is not dead because representatives of the Black church still have the power to change context. A few years ago, a brother by the name of Mr. Soul, Ahmad Arbery, that was the big case in this area. And there was a moment when the attorney from the group of men who he was defending said that they did not want the pastors in the room. They didn't want the pastors in the courtroom.
Really?
Because they were influential. He knew the power
Right.
of the Black presence in the Black church and what that meant to the community and ultimately to the demise of those 3 white men who murdered Ahmaud Arbery. So I say that to say this, the power and the spirit of the Black church is not dead, it's still alive. We even seen it with the Black Lives Matter. We've seen it with the Occupation 99. They had the presence of Black pastors and leadership, which all represents to me is all embodied body of the Black church. That's why I'm saying that it's not there.
I think also we just recently, the boycotting of the Target store.
Oh, yes.
And so that's only like 3 months old, past. So know the power of the Black church.
I agree, I don't believe the Black church is dead, very much alive. Even as dead, we got some big that's standing up, that really sounding the alarm. You know, I'm Richardson, sounding the alarm. The pastor of Transformation Church in Atlanta, Haver, young, energetic pastor. So I don't feel it's like church is dead in our denomination. Bishop Reginald Jackson, I think the alarm is giving him a sign of sound. And I still feel these powerful leaders today. We just got to align ourselves and hear their voice. And
So how would you respond to, like, and maybe you have this conversation with younger people, let's say under 30, who they don't find it relevant, they don't, how do I want to say this? I want to say they don't think it's relevant yet. So they don't find it relevant, and they might say to any of you, any minister, why should I come to your church? I don't see what it's done for our community. So I'm imagining that you've had these conversations, or you've had these criticisms. And so how do you respond to young adults? We won't even count teenagers, but young adults, because they're actually thinking about where they might want to go, or if they might continue the practice. Maybe they grew up going, but now they're in a state where they're like, well, I don't see. And so how do you address that? How do you encourage or share with them why it's impactful, or could be impactful?
I would think that I would say to them, know your history, know where we have come from. And you know our history, I believe we have a great appreciation of where we are now. And we would have a great faith in God and trust Him.
I agree. I was going to say the same thing about, first of all, know your history. And then in addition to that, what is our action? What is it are you seeking from the church? And maybe you could be the catalyst for the change. Instead of trying to get something from the church, what do you have to offer the church that you don't see?
Oh, see, I like that, because you put it right back on them to say, well, if you can perceive that there is a need, there is a lack, there is a gap, why don't you come help? Okay.
I think the other thing we were talking about, knowing our history, at this time, that they're trying to whitewash our history. And so what the churches are doing is teaching history to our young adults and having them to be a part of that. So I think that's encouraging, and to see why are they whitewashing it? You know, so what's so important about that, that they don't want you to know?
Which you would think would be very compelling for young people, because as soon as you tell young people you can't do this, you can't read this, you can't see this, they're like, wow, I want to see what this, right? And so would you meet that by saying, okay, well, at my church, we have, I don't know, Saturday mornings, we have classes, we're teaching Black history, or.
Online classes.
And we, in the Methodist tradition, we have YPD, Young People Department. All of our churches have one. And so perhaps even now, our focus needs to change from some of, and it does change, from time to time. And of course, it's a connectional, we're a connectional church. And so most all our churches have a young people department, which focus on the young people, and whatever their needs may be, that we can see it. And unfortunately, sometimes we just can't see certain needs. But as of right now, our focus must be on the fact that history, as we know it, is no longer taught in the school. But to be honest with ourselves, it was never taught, as it should have been. And so we just have to place more emphasis on that. And some of the very ones who are asking the questions are some of the ones who, as you said, hopefully may become more curious and begin to even be teachers themselves.
Yeah, I see that generation is seeking and searching and wants to find a connection. they want to find, okay, how is this relevant to where I am? And how can I help in this situation? So I believe as clergy and just as leaders, you give them that opportunity to express, even if they don't know what to say. You kind of coach them along to what to say. And also with the history, reminding them about Sankofa, reaching back so that you'll know your past and you'll know what the future looks like. Giving them reasons to be hopeful. Giving them reasons to even come to church. Let them know about the Coptic church and how that is connected.
All right now, Reverend.
That is connected with Africa and who you are. Don't get so caught up in what the black church. I think there's a lot of colorism and identity stuff going on right now. Christian nationalism, and nationalism and white nationalism and all that kind of stuff. And there are a lot of us, people of color, who just are trying to figure out, okay, where am I in all of this? You are right smack in the middle.
Right.
Because if there's white nationalism, hey, there might be Christian Africanism. Yes.
Right.
So propose it in such a way, this generation, you got to negotiate with them. Unfortunately,
I like that.
what you're kind of dealing with in 2025. You got to kind of go back and forth and make them say, that's fair. Because that's what they're
That's
going to
right.
say. That's fair.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Right. And I phrase it that way in terms of sometimes people don't realize, I'll just say it this way, early in life, the value of faith, right? Even if they were brought up in it, you went as a child, maybe you felt like you had to because you were a child, and at some point you fell off, right? In late teens or went to college, you fell off. And then maybe by your late 20s, you don't resonate with, or it doesn't seem like it resonates with your life. And so I kind of laugh a little bit and I say, oh, don't worry. You're gonna, because I think as humans, we all are searching for something, searching for meaning and value. Like, somebody help me make this make sense, this thing called life. Make it make sense, because there's a lot of strife, there's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of suffering. What? And now you're talking to me about somebody who died on a cross 2,000 years ago, and I just don't get it. And as I said, I've taught religion for 20 years. And I would say, and I taught in a Catholic university in Los Angeles, Loyola Marymount University, the Jesuits. And he gave me a lot of latitude to pretty much teach what I wanted to teach. So I gave him a lot of African as a historical sort of foundation. And I would say, I try to give him a little bit to say, there's going to come a time when you need something. And if your parents didn't give, because what I was finding is a lot of parents hadn't given their children anything in terms of a spirituality, in terms of like knowing anything about the Bible, even if you say later, I don't believe in it. What don't you believe in? You don't even know what's in there, right? And so I've had students come back to me, they find me on LinkedIn, who are now maybe in their 30s, and they'll say something like, you always used to say, you're gonna need something. Right? You're going to need something. And maybe that something is not so foreign. If you go talk to your grandparents, for example, or if you go talk to, they can give you something. And a lot of that might come from religion, even though you might have a bad taste in your mouth about religion per se, or in general. But ask your grandparents why it's meaningful to them. Because they've withstood all kinds of challenges that you don't even know nothing about, right? And yet they have stayed in the church or in the mosque. So can you reach within yourself and reach out to your people even and say, well, it's got to be something in this. And so I would say this. So sometimes now they come back, they find me on LinkedIn and they quote me. You ever have parishioners, people come and quote your students, come back and they say that you said, and you're like, did I say? And I have enough people come and tell me that I said, I guess I do say that a lot. And I'm hoping to just plant a seed. If they're 19 when I meet them, that by the time they're 28, 35, because now I'm old enough where they could be 35. And they will say, oh, you know what? You gave me something. You told me about James Cone and liberation theology. You helped me understand how God is a God of liberation, that God cares about people. I didn't ever have that understanding. All I knew was religion was this very oppressive thing that was always telling me what I can't do and that something's wrong with me and blah, blah, blah. And so I think I share with you perhaps a desire to, I don't know, stir up an appreciation in others. Because you can't make somebody have faith, right? You can drag them to church if you want to, but it doesn't mean they're going to really get anything out of it. So then as educators, as clergy, it's kind of like the thing we're in. It's like, okay, this is my mission. This is my work to help other people even value this. Because there's going to come a time when they have something going on in life and they're going to need to make sense out of it. How does this happen? Well, if God is good and God is loving, how come this is going on? And then they're going to look to you, Reverend.
So really, when what we're talking about is that train a child.
Mm-hmm.
The scripture says train a child when they're young. So young may be 18, 20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
but they are younger. And so when they're older, they will remember those things and reach out. And so as a part of our responsibility as clergy is to lay that foundation to help, because sometimes it's not being given in the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to kind of help to lay that foundation and be there for them when they come back.
Mm-hmm. And I would dare say, as clergy, to be seen as real people.
Yes, authentic.
And one of the things that I've had to do is, we live in the same generation that you're talking about, the same generation that have rose against police officers. Most of us are of that generation where we have a great respect for them. Not to say that every police officer is due that respect.
Right.
There are some crooked police officers. But when you look at our society now, I believe that's one of the ways that our young people even look at the church. However, what my challenge has been to some of the young people is imagine a world without the police, or imagine a city without the police. And at some point we have to, and I've done it, so I'm sure we've all done it in our own way, we have to ask those young people to imagine a city without a church. Without the church, without the core values, without individuals who have devoted their lives, and as well as certain families who devoted their lives to living better, living their best to what the Bible has encouraged them to do. Just imagine if the churches weren't here. We all ask ourselves, how would our society be if our individual or local congregations were not there? We challenge our congregations all the time. We have to challenge ourselves as a city, as a state, and as a nation. What would all of us look like if there was no churches? And sometimes we get that residual or reciprocal advantage of encouraging others to look.
And then that opens up, when we talk about authenticity, right? I think we have to be open to some kind of critique, right? And to have that authentic conversation and to say, well, I'm human, we're a human community, we're trying our best, but sometimes we don't get it right.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people, young or whatever their age, will say, oh, I see a lot of hypocrisy. Oh, I see this, I see that. Well, it may be that a certain minister has fallen down in a certain kind of a way. And rather than try to cover that up, rather than try to, shush people or whatever, how about you just say, you know what, this person failed in a certain way, and try to deal with that authentically. And I think, young people today, they want that. They want to see, okay, if you failed, just own it. Because if I fail, you want me to own it. And you want me to come to your church, you want me to come here, you want me to do this, but I see this, and this, and I don't see you addressing that. And so I think from their point of view, if, people in leadership can stand up and say at a certain point, well, yeah, that represents a failure. And what do you do when you fail? Y'all know that Donnie McClurkin song.
Fall down.
We fall down, but what? And I used to play that for my students, right? Not that I was telling them what religion, but I would play. I always would start my classes with music, and so when we got to the part in the course where we were talking about, I think the Pentecostal church, I guess, and I would play that song, and I said, "Now you're gonna never forget that song because it just says the same thing over and over and over and over again." And so, but yeah, that's the human experience. And I think for them, sometimes they feel like, oh, if you're clergy or even a professor, you're presenting yourself as if you're perfect. And then I see all these whatever hypocrisies or failings, and I don't see you dealing with that. And I think it might really be helpful to just say to them, look, we all fall down sometimes, but here's the way back. Here's the way back. You don't have to, fall away into depression or anxiety, and you don't want to leave the house anymore. There might be a period of time where you feel embarrassed or guilty or whatever it is, but what's the way back? And to show that and to say, well, this is how our faith says is the way back. If you're 25 and you've made some errors, you're too young to give up. What you gonna do the rest of your life? And there's some more mistakes you're about to make. You don't even know yet. So anyway, thank y'all for that.
And in that way, the social media hasn't been our friend because they can go on social media and see everything they want
Exactly.
from the negative perspective.
Right.
And then they tend to blanket and paint all of it.
Right.
With that
Right.
one brush.
Which is why I think it's so important for us to be visible in the community, because there is so much of the negativity and the preacher who went awry.
Yes.
And so if there is a strong presence of those who are like, well, I know my minister is doing good work, or the minister, I don't go to that church no more, but I know my minister is always,
Yes.
And so it really makes a difference when you talk about community presence, right? And then I think about the plantation, y'all. Let's go back a little bit. The folk who got to be ministers on the plantation, that was a privileged position. Have y'all read the book Slave Religion? I don't assume that you have. Slave Religion by Albert Raboteau. You remember Raboteau? Because I always say you can't do black religion you can't teach black religion without Albert Raboteau. Slave Religion. And he talks about, and he and others, it's a privileged position because, first of all, it meant that you were probably at least somewhat literate, that you were charismatic, that you knew your way around some words, and other people looked to you. So that even the plantation owner, even the white folk had to say, there's something about that Negro. There's something about that one. And would give him, largely him, permission, a pass to go to another plantation and to preach or to encourage, right? One to another, like there's all kind of ways that you didn't have much freedom. It was a position of privilege. And so now, I think it's still a position of privilege in general.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
How do you, okay, I'm going to 2 questions. How do you wield it? This is the question I really like to answer this way. Because it might really inform, how do you step into that yourself? Who are your spiritual mentors? Who are the ones who have helped you occupy your role?
Well, mine just walked in.
This is Dr. Stevenson.
Dr. Stevenson, yes, I have it here. So Dr. Stevenson has been my spiritual mentor. I should say my father in ministry. And just his life, his activism has been a light, a driving force for me coming up in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but in education as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because so often in the area here in Savannah, we at one time we didn't have as many clergy people with degrees.
Oh.
But now we have probably more in this area than we have around the state in any other given place other than Atlanta. And I think that is because of the influence of Dr. Stevenson.
Well, what do you know?
Doing that. So he has been, he is, I should say, he has been, because he's sitting there now. He is
Mhm.
one of my mentors.
And I came in under Dr. Stevenson also. When we came in, he told us he was not old enough for us to call him our father, but still yet, but we came in under him, and some of the attributes of an individual like Dr. Stevenson is the truth, telling us the truth. That what we were getting into, or perhaps what we were being called to, was not gonna be a cakewalk. It was gonna really take you to some various extremes of your life. And, but at the end of the day, you know, your calling is not to be perfect, but to be faithful. And he would say that every month. And so, you know, we're, I'm not speaking for the whole group, but we're all faithful and we're trainers. We're all someone else's mentors.
Yes.
Because we work with what we call the Board of Examiners of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And so I love to think we carry ourselves in that way. But Dr. Stevens will certainly do not.
Wow.
Also, my mentor was, he passed on, John Daniels Stone. I say it because, when I met him, I feel he encouraged me. I hadn't, finished high school, but he encouraged me to go on to undergrad. He went on to Edgewater University now, to Edgewater College. After that, worked 2 years, and he was still alive. Encouragement went on to Turner Seminary there. And I always wanted to be in social ministry. So I feel that how I would identify with social ministry because he picked me up, encouraged me, you know, excuse me, encouraged me, you know, when I didn't have any focus. And so by that, you know, I was able to attain undergraduate degree, graduate degree, and I worked in a place that some of us don't even like going. I worked in the prison system for 30 years.
Wow.
And a chaplain.
Wow.
So, and I like that ministry. And I really feel that I made a difference there because I believe I want to have the attitude of Jesus. Meet a person where they have nothing but so. And so I was one of the first person they saw when they came into the institution. So I feel that I think I serve like a role of an usher. I encourage them, encourage them. So I try to encourage them. So I believe that I have made an impact. No one told me, and not really anywhere, but I feel that through Reverend Stone, you know, he is a great mentor on my side.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Howard?
My first, it would be my mom. She sung in the choir. She took me to church. She led and guided me. And as a result of being led and guided by my mom, I seen not only what she did at the church, but at the house. You know, my mom and dad weren't married, but my mom took me to church and put me in the places that I can learn from as far as my calling in social ministry and reaching out to the community, helping people who hurt. I believe my ministry is the ministry for the misfits. The ones who everybody, they kind of overlook. Almost like the lepers or don't want to touch. Those who've been rejected, those who've been abused, those who've been shamed. It's because that's been a lived experience. That's been something that I've experienced, and the love ethic of Jesus and how he operated encourages me and it inspires me. But my mother, going back, my mother, Bishop Reginald T. Jackson, the history of Bishop Richard Allen the history of Bishop Henry Neal McTurnan, Henry McNeil Turner.
Turner.
Those who are at this table right now, kind of, I'm like a sponge, kind of glean from all of them. And it's kind of formed, it has formed who I am as a minister. Yeah, so.
That's wonderful.
I have to say my dad, starting off, I'm a son of the parsons. My dad was a pastor. But my dad was not a seminary graduate pastor. My dad started on the rough side of the mountain, he really ministry. My dad's first church was a block building, dirt floor. Yeah. No pews, just a center of the block with planks going across. No running water, outhouses,
Wow,
dirt road.
Yeah.
wow. Here in Georgia?
Yes, his first church, and this was in 1970, early 70s. My dad's first church was in Crawford County, Roberta, Georgia. And so, very interesting situation. Mom would fix a sack lunch, water, bring water. They would have water there, you know. But it was a very interesting situation. And so my exposure to ministry was not in the city church. It was way in the deep rural. And old-fashioned cooking, old-fashioned singing, no musicians, no music. My dad played a little piano, and his first church, they got a little piano, and he started with his own choir, and it's a very interesting situation. And so, I watched Dad. My dad passed for over 50 years, and after retiring, now he's pastoring the Baptist church. And so, I saw him get phone calls in the middle of the night when a parishioner passed away or something. I saw him get up in the middle of the night, get in his car to go take care of his people. I saw that. Plus working a full-time job. And my dad eventually became a circuit pastor. And at one time, he had 4 churches at one time, preaching twice a Sunday.
Did he give up sleeping?
But I saw that, and I saw that. And so, by seeing that, it became a part of who I am as a pastor. And so there have been times when I had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go take care of my people. And so, he's one of the first influences. And then there was a former late design elder, the late Reverend A.G. Conner. He was my dad's design elder. He was very influential. And then after him, Reverend A.G. Terrell. He was one of my design elders, very influential. Then there is the late David L. Moore. He was one of the design elders. And so those are strong. And then some of the pastors in the Board of Examiners, when I came through, Terrence Gray, and he was very influential, and Reverend Spencer Booker, he was another one. And then once I got to ITC, Dr. Carolyn McCray, she was, not only was I a pastor at one time, but she was very influential in my ministry. And Dr. Black History, Church History,
Henry Love Bush,
Henry Welcher.
Randall Bailey. As Dr. as Reverend Dumas is all this
Right. Of course.
Dr. Randall C. Bailey, Ed Wimberly, Ann
Yes.
Wimberly, Dr. Godwin, Dr. Mark Lomax.
Oh, yes.
And many, Walter Kimbrough, it's,
Yeah, I know.
he talked about that.
He talked about,
Starting, I was in Sharpsburg, which is right outside of Newnan, Georgia. one way in, one way out. I was a licentiate, Dr. Clark, in seminary and sit at a pretty much missions church. And I stayed there for 3 years. And Walter Daniels, presiding elder Walter Daniels, he was kind of a guy to introduce me to cut my teeth, as they used to say, or they still do say, to learn about ministry and identifying with not just the upper echelon, if you will, but just good old, just regular, just folk living the best life they can. He just
And we don't want to forget Dr. Jacob, Daniel Jacob.
Daniel Jacob.
He was my first dean, at. I had Jacob and Green.
I had, yeah, I've had both.
Yeah, and all.
Yeah. So from our conversation, we all went to ITC. So we all have our masters from ITC.
Right.
But you called out Dr. McQuarrie, Dr. Jacqueline Grant.
Yes.
A major mentor. And,
Yes.
so Dr. Grant and her sister and I, Deborah and I are good friends. But Dr. Grant, Jacqueline Grant and I were roommates at one of our general conferences. And that was for about a week and a half.
That's a story.
Yeah, it was a rich experience just to spend time with, I call her Dr. Jackie, to spend time with Dr. Jackie, just to listen to her, not in the classroom,
Right,
but sitting on the side of the bed.
right.
Just talking to her. But another one of my mentors is Dr. Renita Weems.
Oh, yes.
So Dr. Weems, I met her before I entered ministry. And I think she said, Just a Sister Away,
Yeah.
that book was her dissertation. And so she was selling that from the back of her car when I first met her. But I watched her ministry faithfully. And so my Bible studies, my preaching, my existence as a woman in ministry has come from watching the likes of Dr. Renita Weems.
The womanists.
Yes.
And I'm so glad you brought that. And I asked that question because I think it's helpful for people who are not clergy or not necessarily church folk to understand, how do people get to be ministers, right? Like that seems to be a mystery thing. And I told you I taught at a Jesuit school. And so how do you get to be a priest? Like you're already elevated and people feel like you're not a real person. So that's kind of why I wanted to have people, who will watch this and say, there are people who have decided to walk a certain, with faith, right? That you've decided to walk a certain path. It's not an easy path and you have your own challenges, right? So I just kind of want to humanize what it is to be clergy, what it is to be in leadership, so that when you talk about being a leader in your community in an activist way, there is a personal cost to that. Whereas, people can just stay with their, on their computers or on their cell phones and like something. And, I don't know what the kids call it today, when you just like I don't know what they call it, but like basically a keyboard, protester or something. But it takes not just, what we might call courage to speak truth to power or to walk, in a certain path. But there's the recognition that, this might cost me something in terms of friendships, in terms of associations I have with other leaders in this community. And we know Dr. King, he struggled mightily with things. And yet, you do it, right? Or, with Brother Malcolm, right? He knew that bullet was coming. And sometimes I watch the autobiography of Malcolm X, or I read about Malcolm extensively, and watch documentaries. And I just say to myself, how did you not just get on a plane and go to Africa? Because he had people in Africa saying, come here, you bring Betty and the children, come. Or, Dr. King saying, he sat at that table. We saw the picture, right? He's sitting at the table and he's just head in hands. And so given today's culture or political context, what gives you the courage or what whatever you want to call it, what allows you to still speak up? Reverend Prager, you look like you're ready.
Well, I was not, but I am now. I don't know. I really don't know. So it's I guess it's just my belief and my calling.
Mm.
I was called to do a certain thing, and so I just do it. When it's time to speak up, I'll speak up. I think when we're talking about the prophetic voice,
Mm-hmm.
I think the prophetic voice is to know when to speak and when not to speak. Most of the time, most people can't discern a prophetic voice. And because we're looking to hear something that make us feel good, most of the time the prophetic voice is just the opposite. And we don't want to hear that.
Right.
So we run away from
Right.
that and we say that they are not the prophet.
Right.
And so I think that for me, it's just knowing my calling and able to just stand and spend a lot of time in prayer behind closed doors. And if you have to cry, just cry. If you need to scream out, just scream out. But then, get up, dry your face, and walk out there and do what you are called to do. And it's all the time, it's not going to be even received.
Right.
It's not going to be received.
Right.
But in the face of that, you must go.
Right. The prophets, none of them want, they don't know, not me.
And most prophets are not, a prophet don't want to be a prophet.
Right. Right.
I think it was Amos, when they called Amos a prophet, he was like, no, I'm a herdsman. I'm not a prophet. I'm a herdsman. I take care of the sheep.
Right.
And so when you see a person that says, oh yeah, I'm a prophet, you need to kind of take a double take
Are
with
you
that.
sure about that?
Because it's a difficult
Yes.
place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us, even with ministry, most of us, we did not accept our call, the very first call.
Mm.
Right?
I was going to ask y'all about that, but in the
Okay.
interest of time.
Sorry.
Okay.
Again, running away. And so by the time we accept our call, we're ready. So I'm going to stand here.
As ready as you're going to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've been running I've been
Yes.
running for so many years, and
Yes.
now I'm going to stand up and do it. Yes.
Anyone else?
I think what gives me the courage to do what I do is because I met the Christ of Scripture and not the Christ of the church fan.
Okay, that's good.
When I was a little boy in church, there was always that church fan
Yes.
that had Jesus knocking on the door. I met the Jesus of Scripture and not the Jesus of the church fan. And so when I read the scriptures, I find myself in the text. I find myself in scripture. But then I also found the Christ of Scripture when the Ethiopian eunuch in the book of Acts met Philip and had a dialogue and was baptized. And he headed back home. That's where I knew I was in the text, because Ethiopia is in Africa. And Dr. Wilson tells us in church history that Israel is in Africa. And it's not the Middle East, it's Africa.
Right.
And so I got exposed to that. I was preaching to a certain degree, but something really clicked in that African American church history class. When I found that we're in there and that we can take pride in the fact that we were Christian before the European, because it started there before it went to Europe.
Which reorients world history, doesn't it?
Yes.
Isn't
So
that?
that's what I get mine from, the Christ the scripture and not church.
I feel I got my prop from, I would say, the biblical character of Moses. I say because, I grew up, I wouldn't talk much. And Moses, well, God said Moses, because Moses had a speech impediment, I identify myself with Moses. So that, I use that encouragement. But also, I don't even know the young lady name, she was a kid. But when I was an undergrad, Jacksonville, Florida, there was a young girl, came to church every Sunday morning for the morning service in a wheelchair. Even she was small, but yet she came with a smile on her face. I mean, she had a frown. I've said so many times, she was such an encouragement to me. So when I look back at others, I feel that God can use me. And another one, encouraged me when I was undergrad. The guy that was over student affair, he had a speech impediment. So to me, seeing in other individuals, I use that in a positive way. So I think it was starting me talking more because I grew right in it. But unless you ask me a question, I answer directly, that's it.
Reverend Clark, did you?
My call, to be able to just help, I'm from a large family, and, I realized that even within the confines of my family initially, that there were those with different needs, various needs. And, my call, again, if I had to attribute it to some character, we've all done the call paper, write that. How will we call? Certainly be, Saul, was converted to Paul. I was not the nicest person. I knew how to act nice. And, I knew within the confines of my own self that there were some problems. And so to be able to see other people as needing help, not quote unquote needy, but needing more than myself, being able to sacrifice time, talent, and resources to be able to not only introduce them to the God of the scriptures, the Jesus of the scriptures, but also to be able to let them know that everything's going to be all right. I feel good at that, even when things are not all right with me. Most of us feel good telling people that things are going to be all right.
It'll work out by and by, as they say. Okay. What's going on in Savannah? What's needed? And I say, well, multiple things, but I've only been in Savannah a couple years. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, but I've lived in a lot of places. I've lived in New York. My first career was in fashion, and I had sort of a calling of my own, and I ignored that as much as I can. I'm not going back to school, no. I was in New York doing that thing, and it just kept on. You need to go to seminary. I didn't even know what seminary was. What? But then, come to find out, I was in the city where James Cone was teaching at Union, and I was like, "What's that?"
Yes.
But anyway, I finally said yes. But to even the academic route. So I say that, and then I was in LA in California for a long time. So I don't necessarily even know really deeply what goes on in Savannah in terms of what are the needs of the people here. And if you know Aubrey Hendricks at all, if you're familiar with Aubrey Hendricks, right? And he says, the gospel essentially is to treat the needs of the people as holy. And he says any minister who does not have that as a core understanding to treat the needs of the people as holy, then you're off track already. So what is needful in Savannah? Do you have your own, it could be that you have your own projects that you're working on or needs that you see, the ways in which you try to help Savannah, because we're talking about activism. So what are the needs? And yeah, I'll just leave it open that way.
Savannah is not unique to itself as it relates to the needs. Certainly the needs that are in Savannah can be attributed to other cities also. However, Savannah is a very unique city in itself. When we look at Methodism, when we look at John and Charles Wesley, having studied, we look at Henry McNeil Turner coming across the Savannah River and starting St. Philip Church, St. Philip Monumental Church, and ultimately 600 churches, over 600 churches, growing out of that, out of just that movement. When we look at Savannah, if you bring it up to today, we have some needs, certainly. One of the things that we tend to emphasize is that Savannah has over 500 churches. Those
Really?
are churches that are identifiable by phone numbers, when we had a phone book. So certainly there are more than 500 churches within the confines of Savannah. Some will say there's one on every corner. But still yet, we still have a need to preach the gospel to people, to make sure that we are working hand in hand. We still have homelessness. We still have a lot of things that are going on. And so our needs are very broad. But I think that one of the things that we do every Sunday is address those needs in one way, form, or fashion to encourage people that come. As well as now listen to us on YouTube and Facebook and other media.
Exactly.
to encourage.
Well, if I may jump in, there's in particular the gentrification issue here, and people being displaced, and even from SCAD, right? The footprint of SCAD is multifold in the sense of like, yes, it brings a lot, but it also pushes out. And so, and into Hilton Head, I started coming here as a visitor in 2018, and I was so taken by this city. I was really, and I was coming from LA. As I said, I lived in, big cities and all that, and I was kind of ready to leave the big city, and something in Savannah was calling me, and so I just started coming here, and I came here a couple of years in a row. Then it was COVID year, so they were very strict in California about that. So I've seen the difference in terms of gentrification. Like Hilton Head is unrecognizable to me after COVID. When I went in 2021, I said, what happened? We already lost, it's gone. So I'm just saying, not that you have the answers to that, because if you did, you could just snap your finger. But I guess I'll ask it this way. How big of an issue is that for the everyday person in Savannah, being displaced from housing, would you call it? Or is that further down the list of the things that you think are pressing?
Can I just respond to you?
Yes, yes.
You're talking about what we say weeks ago. Something happened last weekend that I participated in, that I was very inspired by it. I house in East Savannah, and the East Savannah president asked me, one of the senior pastor here, to coordinate a community unity worship service. So on last Sunday, 4 churches, different denominations, we suspended our 11 o'clock worship service. And we worship together. Choir, ushers, everybody. And to me, that was a great experience. So I will see that we take down the barriers. And, we don't look at what faith group you belong to. But I think it was a great worship experience. For Baptists, ALB, non-denomination, Church of God in Christ. We had a great worship experience. So I would say, we come together, don't look at what faith group you belong to.
To do something, okay. Anyone else? See, you look like Curtin Frater.
Well, I pastor in Midway, Georgia, which is in Liberty County.
Oh, okay.
Outside of the city, about 25 miles outside of
Okay.
Savannah. But in the community in which I pastor, there is a new subdivision is in the process of being built now. And so what that does is that for all of the property owners their taxes are up.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's happening is that the community, most of, 2/3 of my congregation, live in trailers. And across the street, they're building $300,000 homes.
Wow.
And so for that community, in another 2 or 3 years, the taxes are going to be in a
Right.
place that they're not going
Right.
to be able to
Right.
afford them.
Wow.
And so we are looking at how can we help, how can we do something?
Mm-hmm.
The other concern that I have in that area is that the county area commissioners are 2/3 Black as well. And I'm thinking, are they considering what's happening as they allow those kind of
Development.
projects
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
forward in the community? So those are the things that I'm confronted with.
Mm-hmm.
The other is for our young men, our young men. And so again, in the community, we have, I think they call it the 11 Black Men of Liberty County. It is the brother organization to the 100 Black Men. I think it says that because they're within a 100-mile radius, you can't have 100 Black men. And so it's called the 11 Black Men of Liberty County. And so we are kind of partnering with that organization where they, helping young men. And they have done an excellent job in grooming them, preparing, working with them as they reach adulthood.
Yes, Brad, you
But-
No, you know.
So, at Boulevard, we have collaborated with different, churches as well as organizations, to deal with, hunger, food deserts in our area, fresh foods. We got we got to deal with hot Cheetos and Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right.
Right. So eating healthy. We also have partnered with Second Harvest and Faith Activity and Nutrition. That's our fan ministry. To meet the needs, to talk about health in the community. Breakfast feeding. We're getting ready to relaunch our clothing industry. But we're doing it on a small scale. Because in our context, our church is between Cape Homes and Frenchtown. Right? So they are getting ready to experience the displacement. And we are asking, praying, number one, how do we help? Number two, what do we need to do to prepare for what is coming? So it's a loaded question from my perspective, being back in the city for almost 3 years. Living in the city from 94 to 99 is entirely different than 2023 to 2025.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Just a few years I've been coming here, and the disparity that we're
For
seeing,
me, yeah.
right, all over the country. Like you say, if a development starts to go up next to you, that's going to radically alter your living situation. And coming from LA, $1 million is an average home.
Yes.
And so if you then have, a development going up in your backyard, now your home is about, your property taxes about, and I knew professional people who combined incomes were scraping together so they could afford barely that $1 million home, which again, we're talking 3 bedrooms here.
Right.
And then, working professionals with advanced degrees and all the things. And now you're saying what? So homelessness, as I'm sure you've seen in California, is off the chart. It is people living in their cars off the chart. And so, like you were saying, like the issues are not necessarily unique to Savannah, but what does it look like on the ground here? Because there, like the numbers just become astronomical. And I always say, we're talking about monopoly money. And I would kind of just laugh and say, if you're going to give me a mortgage for $1 million, then you just going to have to get it from me over my dead body, because we're talking monopoly money at this point. So, anyway, I didn't really, did anybody else want to add to that, or?
I also want to make note of the fact that we also help homelessness as well as help individuals that are not being fed well, hungry, through Savannah Feed the Hungry. Carl Gilliard, who is the state representative, works very closely with that. So we can all get together and when we look at our denomination, our missionary societies, our various missionary societies, of course, move with the times, with not only giving food, but blankets, other commodities that are needed. And so, which really speaks to our existence from Richard Allen. Not to go
Right,
all the way
right,
too
right.
far back, but
Right.
again, to serve.
Yep, all the way back down, yes.
Going far back, but we still have that, the spirit of Richard Allen and our founding fathers, mothers, to make sure that we take care of those, the least of God.
And then I'll wrap it up, because I know, we have other places to be, and I appreciate your time. But I want to ask you what you think of this. In light of, we started this conversation talking about Eddie Glaude and his statement, and a lot of other scholars we could talk about who've refuted him, Anthea Butler, and a lot of people. But do you think there is a substantial gap between the university academy and the pulpit that may lead to these types of assertions that, you can say, well, you know what, that's not actually true, Professor Glaude. And from your office at Princeton, it might look to you like you can make such a statement, right, and that be real. But where we are in our pulpit ministries, interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, that's not the deal. So the question is, do you think that sometimes academics can be, so just myself, I guess, can be so far in the ivory tower as to like, maybe better not say such a thing, because maybe I don't know. What do you think? Because you all are trained in both ways.
I think there is a difference in the practicality of ministry and the academy. In the church, you're hands-on. And so I think sometimes the academy gives us theory. And so we're trying to take that theory and to use it. All the time it doesn't work. It's not working for us. And so we have to go from what's happening at that particular time and adjust ourselves as we go and doing that. And so for most of us, the academy is not talking to us about gentrification. How do I handle the issues of taxes for my congregation? How do we handle the displacement of those communities in another couple of years, of the hunger that we see all over? And especially right now, the academy hasn't prepared me for how we're going to deal with the insurance that's going up so high
Right,
that my parishioners can't afford
right.
the insurance, and I'm looking for a budget. So those are the kinds of things. So I think that there is a gulf, a difference there. Yes.
Even under this banner of this thing called liberation theology, because we might say as professors in the field, well, there's liberation theology, and we speak to it all the time, and James Cone and the Womanist and da, da, da. But that's a little bit different because the parishioners aren't reading Cone. They're not gonna pick up that book. And so,
They
Um,
see me as their pastor, they don't see me as a woman. It's just-
right, what is a womanist? I don't have time to read Katie Cannon. What are you?
What are you talking about?
I heard Katie Cannon was Nick Cannon's great aunt. Is that true? Like, that's the level they're on. Like, and you're like, yes, but can you go read, Reverend Howard, were you gonna,
Wow.
you look like you were ready to.
Yes, I agree with Dr. Prater, there is a
Yeah.
gap, and part of our assignment today is to bridge that gap. You got Katie Cannon.
Yes.
I see you put Katie Cannon,
Indeed.
drove her from the airport to Flipper Temple Founder's Day in Atlanta.
Did you?
Yes, I was her angel, that's what she called me. You're my angel, I was like, yep.
And the fact that they both passed so closely together.
Yes,
is-
yes.
I think, again, our assignment was to kind of bridge that gap, raise awareness, to the communities, the academic, again, Dr. Prentice hit it on the head. I just think about, Project 2025. There was a Project 2000 that was written by Stephen Razor and ITC that kind of talked about what is happening now in 2000. Project it's called Project 2000, and it helps connect the laity and the clergy together to deal with how we're going to deal with certain issues that we are experiencing in real time today. And I think that's another way to reach our young people is to remind them and say, yo, you all are dealing with something in real time that's happening right before your eyes.
Right.
And you need to know how to prepare for it. And maybe we can help, and that'll draw them, because they'll hear the compassion.
Right.
And they'll see the authenticity.
Right.
In those conversations.
I think academia, was a wonderful thing. I love my time at seminary. Like, I love the information that I was exposed to. Systematic theology, church history, New Testament, Old Testament, all of that. And all of that
Do your
shaped.
Hebrew and your Greek.
Yes, and all of that shaped who I am today. But the thing is, knowing when and where and how to use that information. Because when I'm preaching at a little church on side of the road, with grandma and big mama and them there,
Right.
she really don't want to hear anything about politics or
Right. Right.
but she do want to hear about Jesus.
Right.
If they're a word from the Lord. And so, there is a gap. And in various circumstances and various situations, the gap can be brought closer. But you have to know when and where and how to use that. And so, I love information. But I also love being a good country preacher on the side of the road. Who can expound on the word, put Jesus on the cross, put him in the grave, and get him up on Sunday morning. And so, this is wonderful.
Wow.
I think that the academy, we have to consider the sources, consider who's saying what. And I think that in our consideration of who's saying what, we have to be respectful of the fact of what they're saying. And Dr. Prater hit upon that, we're literally all, sum totals, of wherever we are. But we're grateful that we are at the front of the line, if you will, and have opportunities to affect so many people in so many wonderful ways. But I think as we know that there is a difference in the academy and where we are, that again, respecting that gulf, as she said, realizing that gulf is there, but never being so reckless as to make the academy feel that they're used to this.
Yes.
But know that we're who we are, and have some esteem about who we are, what we're trying to do.
Right,
Then we can work towards, bridging those goals.
Yeah.
Bridging those gaps.
there was a bit of a controversy because Dr. Vernita Weems said recently, she has a Substack, in case y'all are on Substack.
There it is.
You guys, okay. She was talking about the difference between a D-Min and a PhD, right? And I guess people, well, you know, frauds,
Yes.
but I don't know. I didn't take it as it was an attack. I just took it as a way of distinguishing, right? And to give proper credit. Like, I'm not the one to stand in the pulpit. I have a PhD and I could if you really, if it wasn't nobody else, but I feel like it should be somebody other than me, right? And so, and then there's a follow-up article because people were kind of attacking her over this and for various other things, where she wrote another article that said, if you see somebody attacking me, what are you gonna do? Like, don't let it be that you just let me burn, right? Don't let it be that my blood is spilled and you just the one taking selfies.
Yes.
And so, you know, there is this point to be made, like here is Renita Weems making a statement about something, and then the backlash being so harsh, and she's saying, well, y'all just gonna leave me just,
Yes.
and it's multi-layered, because we know, you know, as Black people, right, like, we don't do that, or when we do that, that is highly, you know, that's like you're not giving somebody the nod, right, back on the street, like, if you don't give me back the nod, and something go left, I'm not looking for you, like that, right? Do y'all have this experience when you get on an airplane and you're going down the aisle? Might be a go like, oh, this is the South, you might know Black people, but you know, in the North and the West, you get on the plane and it's just maybe you and two other Black people on the plane, and you're going down a little aisle, you do it.
So, yeah.
And it's, you know, if anything goes wrong on this plane, I ain't looking for you. Right, because we do that for security, right? It comes from some place of living in segregated communities and needing each other, needing that green book to tell us where it was safe to be. And so now, if I now I still can't leave you out there like that. So Renita Weems is saying, oh, y'all just left me out there like this? And anyway,
That's a valid point.
right, and so, anyway, I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but, I
Well,
wanna,
that's a valid point. We've all experienced that too.
Yes.
So tell her, welcome to the ministry.
and Katie Cannon tells a story of when she was early in her career, right, when she was, clergy, right, was she Lutheran, or she, I wanna say, or Presbyterian? Presbyterian, I think. And how people came at her to say she couldn't, you know, a woman couldn't preach, or they came at her very aggressively. And, you know, no one came to her aid. I know, like, Carol.
I was gonna say, to get her started.
Otis Moss, third, and Reverend William Barber. Yeah, and I just, you know, church is not dead, right? You know, people like you sitting here, and also, do y'all know her?
Yeah, she's, how do I?
Yes.
You all may have heard her sing her song. She used to sing with, the church out in Heather, group out of Travelers and Commonplace.
City of Brentwood, Liquor Church now, UCC.
That's where she kind of started, but now she's at, she spoke at my wife's graduation. The Reverend Dr. that found Bishop.
Yes, Bishop.
Yeah, she's a bishop, at Columbia Theological Seminary in Atlanta. She spoke and, she sang as well. She's, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, doing a lot of really groundbreaking, right, out in San Francisco Bay Area, yeah. Anyway, those are just some images of some people who I see as being very progressive and often being in that role, that prophetic space that's going to cost you something on a personal level that you may or may not have anticipated, but the gospel says you have to do it, right? And so, do y'all remember Reverend, he's Catholic priest, Michael Flager in Chicago? I don't know, I guess he's still at the church. What's the name of that church? Saint Sabina. And, you know, he is that Catholic priest who has been ministering to Black communities for decades. He must be in his 70s by now, well into his 70s by now. And on occasion, they sat him down. They sit him down sometimes because he's out in these streets so much, right? He's been, you know, speaking against gun violence and talking about, you know, unfair policing. He adopted 2 Black boys. And, you know, every now and then the establishment, the Catholic Church says to him, sit down now, Father Flager. And he's like, I can't do it. I can't. I have to. This is the work. This literally is the work. And they tried to sit him down, and his people and his congregation said, you better give us Father Flager back. And they said, we're going to give you another priest. We don't want no other priest. We'll disband this parish. It's just amazing, right? And so anyway, I just put up some people there. And I didn't let these people see it as well, but I'll show you later if I'm going to see. Just to say that, you know, to conclude, the Black church is not dead. And we do have some conversations that can be had. We can have some conversations about capitalism and how it might compromise some of us. Because I would always ask my students this: how big the check got to be? Because somebody can come with a check and you say, oh, I would never do this, I would never do that, I would never do this, I would never do that. And somebody come with a check and you're like, ooh. And you might even say, I'll take the check because I can do some good with it. But the source of the check, right? Consider this administration right now, the source of that check. And because you can't speak truth to power if you took it. Right? And so I would always ask them, and they would sit there like, and of course, being young and kind of privileged students at this school, oh, I wouldn't take it. I'm like, what they say, keep on living. And you'll think twice, you're like, well, I shouldn't take it, but what if I can do some good? And I think about somebody like Booker T. Washington, not clergy, but, you know, in order to start Tuskegee, he had to be man about town with hat in hand, taking a check because he had a bigger vision. But sometimes our young people today will even look back at Booker T. Washington and consider him to be somewhat of a sellout because they want to be so pro Du Bois, and that's fine. But if you don't really know the history and the nuances, Tuskegee's still standing, right? So anyway, I can stop talking. And if anybody want a final word, or we actually, you know what? I didn't even ask of questions right here. I should have asked a question. Since we have a couple people who joined us, do you have anything? And I'm so sorry, I don't remember your name and your church.
My name is Valerie Rhines, and I'm pastor of the church plant, Radiant Church, Savannah. And I am also a registered nurse of 30 plus years. And coming into the pulpit is something that I ran from forever. When you were talking about calling, I remember the calling was from very young, and my father was a Baptist minister, and I never saw women leading or in the pulpit in particular denomination that we were part of. And so for me, it felt almost sacrilegious to hear this call to do what my father was doing, but I'm thinking, that's not for me, so, you know, you push it away. So I put my whole life into becoming a nurse and ministering through my profession and to my children and my husband. It's been now almost 10 years that the Lord says you will either do what I've asked
Or else.
And so I am completing my degree from North Park Theological Seminary in Chicago. And, one more semester, Lord.
You can do
And
it.
so
You almost there. We've been there.
But one of the things that you mentioned also is that what do we see a need here in Savannah? And one of the people who has they've been a very big inspiration in my ministry is Howard Thurman.
Oh, yes.
Being a mystic and, you know, really leaning into hearing from God, however you choose to, I guess, put whatever vote or you want to put him on. But he said something that matched a scripture that I believe is a part of my calling to ministry, and it's out of Ephesians 2:10, where he says that we are his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus for good works, that he prepared for us in advance. And so for me, I know through that scripture that I am uniquely called and uniquely made and gifted. And so he said that, you know, instead of asking what the world needs, ask what gives you life. And when you bring life to it, the world can respond. And so for me, that's kind of how I do ministry. And that kind of, I guess, mystical way of existing. My husband and I moved to Savannah in 2014. So we've been here for a minute, but when we moved, we had a home built. We had reached that place in life where we thought we were going to build our dream home, and you can probably, some of you can identify with me. I have had a closet that was as big as a bedroom. I had shelving and all this great stuff, and then in the midst of God saying, "Hey, are you going to do what I called you to do, or are you going to keep going in the direction you're going?" Nothing wrong with the direction. Being a nurse is a mighty call. But he says that you need to leave this house, sell it, and I need you to move to where the people are called you to. And I told my husband, and he says, "God ain't said that to me." And so it was about another 9 months. And he said, "I can't shake it. God is saying move." So we live in Cabo Brownville on a street that is in desperate need. And we have neighbors that come and ask for toiletries. So we have a toiletry ministry where we
Wow.
put together bags
Wow.
of deodorant and soap and bath cloths, and we give them out. But since we've been there now for 2 years, we've seen where we've gotten pothole repairs and sidewalks taken care of, and we're beginning to be a part of our community. And one of the things that we did when we moved in, we had to have some remodeling done inside, because it was in desperate need. And one of our neighbors says, "Oh, are you guys about to do a bed and breakfast?" And I said, "No." I said, "We're moving. We're going to be your neighbors. We are going to be like the spirit that God gave us, where he says he moved into the neighborhood." And so for me, when I start looking at what is the need of Savannah, I think the need is for more people to say, "I'm willing to leave my comfort and get into the trenches
Wow.
and start doing the work." And I was at a city, a meeting for faith leaders, and one of the things I said is, I've been working on trying to get sidewalks in my community for 2 years. And one of the questions that came from someone on the diocese, they asked the question of, "So what have you done?" I said, "Well, I did the process, I went through 311. So I said, "So what is the difference between my request and the request that's happening in Ardsley Park?" And the response was that more people in Ardsley Park are making the request. And so I said, "So you're telling me that if people who are working 2 or 3 jobs and trying to take care of their family, I mean, because not everyone that lives in Cabo Brownville is unemployed or uninterested." I said, "But they're working 2 and 3 jobs to take care of their family, to keep a roof over their head. And so because they don't have time to come sit in front of their computer and fill out a 311 request, then that one request that does come from the neighborhood is not enough." And so I I just believe that God has called me and others in this time to begin to say, I'm willing to leave my comfort and be the church.
Wow.
And it looks and feels crazy, not just to people who don't know God, but it looks crazy to people who know God. Because people are like, wow, there were 4 police cars down the street from you. What do you mean you live in, West 39th Street? What's your issue? And the issue is that I walk my community, I pray in my community, I talk to my neighbors, they know who I am, I don't fear my neighbors. Because I'm a part of the neighborhood, I'm a part of the community. And I think that the church, when we say, has the Black church died? No, it has not died. Yes, there's been several assassination attempts, but I think a lot of the work is happening from the inside out. We're committing a little bit of suicide because we're not where we were before. We're not in our communities living. We live in those houses with huge closets and 4 cars in the driveway. And we're disconnected from the people. So it's hard to say what that need is when we're not there. And so for me, Howard Thurman saying, show up where you come alive, I come alive when we help single moms who've been displaced since COVID. There's so many of them out there. They're living in motels, they're living in their vans, they're couch surfing since COVID.
Wow.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's been
Right,
5 years. And we are helping single moms get into permanent placement by helping to pay security deposits, by helping to vouch for them on applications. So the Black church is not dead, but we are feeble. And I think it's because we're disconnected.
Thank you so much for that. That was really a lot to thank you. You're right. You're right on so many levels, and it's a reminder. Oh, yeah, maybe I've gotten too comfortable and complacent that I forgot. Dr. Stevenson, anything you wanted to say? I don't
Yes,
want
I was just sitting here, taking all of this in and thinking back and reflecting in the rearview mirror where I've come from. Being a part of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, first of all, I want to say that the church didn't start as an evangelist church. We started it because of a social movement. Because we were rejected, we could not celebrate or worship with other folk in the church. Therefore, we were rejected and thrown out of that church. And as a result, we started down the street, what we call the Free African Society, in a blacksmith shop. The first bishop of the church became the first person to own property in the United States. He paid $2,000 for the property, who was Richard Allen. And when I think about that experience and what I'm a part of, and I just tried so hard not to preach. I really didn't want to preach. I was in my 30s before I even decided to preach. I felt like preaching was for everybody else. I went to church, but I was in the church, but I wasn't a part of the church. I go to church at St. Philip with this young man named Pastor many years ago. And me and my group, we would sit on the back. There used to be a place called Savannah Pharmacy. A lot of these folks might not know about that now. It's been gone now. But matter of fact, where Keaton Home was is where I grew up in that area. But one Keaton Home was called Hookton and Frog Town. That's where I came out. Anybody that came out of Frog Town was destined and known not to succeed. Matter of fact, my first grade teacher wrote in my records when I was in first grade that I want to ever become anything, anybody. That's in my records now. If you go back and look at those first grade records. And she was biased in her thinking because folk out of Frog Town, they always looked down on those folk because they drank, they partied, they had a good time. But what folk didn't understand was that folk in Frog Town cared about each other. See, we had two different levels. This is prior to desegregation. Because I still don't think we've got the integration, particularly now in this day and time, because integration is totally accepted. Desegregation is the ability to enter different places. We desegregated the places, but our hearts are still the same. Therefore, when I reflect back on that, in the segregated system, there was a class and caste system where our own folk discriminated against us. In this young man's church, because the color of my skin, the color of my great-grandmother, or my grandmother, because it believed that my great-grandmother, who was born in slavery, whom I knew, her mother was a slave right here in the Savannah area, right up there in this area called Grove Point. You know, Georgetown, some of you know, okay?
Yeah, I'm
There's a
out there.
grave back there. And that grave is only for individuals who are part of this extended family. So I say all of that to say that when I entered St. Philip, because of the color of my skin and other blacks who were lighter were able to get prominent positions in the church, recognized. See, there was a class and caste system we're going to talk about that. But this is the type of system that I grew up with. So, you know, what's being said now predates all of my experiences. And what we are going through now, this is not the first time this has ever happened. This happened back in the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, turn of the century. Black folks there the same and everything. But the thing of it is, as far as the church is concerned, I remember when they sent a man to our church, he was of dark complexion. And they said that in the same church this young man passed, darker than me. And I heard my Sunday school teacher say, we don't want no black man like that to pass our church.
Wow.
There I was, young man. His name was Ben Dick. Ben Dick. I wasn't baptized by Ben Dick, but I was baptized by a gentleman called John Sterling Bryan. When Reverend Bryan had us in the church, his wife would have for the kids in the community, Charles Street, Oak Street. You might have heard Edmund Branch, who was the representative. You know, we used to all play together. And you might have heard her talk about Curry Time, Frog Time, and all these different places. Well, we grew up in the church together in St. Philip. And basically what happened is, Reverend Bryant's wife would have what they call a little social hour, or social period for the kids in the community. A social tea, that's what they call it. I would go, I knew nothing about my social tea. You know, I had no connection. You know, I didn't have a perfect family per se, like you say it is now. I had a sperm donor. My dad said I wasn't needed. I grew up with two women, a great-grandmama and a mama. My mama worked in a nightclub called Gunners right here in Savannah. Tremont Inn, you might see it out there. It was a club out there. And the Coconut Groves used to be right there on 17. Black folks used to go on the weekend. But anyhow, she would have those teas, and when we had to come, she would tell us, well, sit down to the table. She would try to teach us how to pick up the cup, how to eat the cookie, and put it back down. Those are the type, that's the type of experience that I had. But in spite of the fact that you went through those class and caste system, there were those individuals who tried to bring us together to teach us the necessary things. But at the same time, there were those who tried to separate themselves. Anybody that stayed south of 36th Street were considered the upper class. Everybody north of 36th Street were considered not too good. Okay? So you're talking about 31st, 32nd, 33rd, up to 35th, Clarence Street. That was a bad group. But the thing of it is, you know, we were taught how to, by Sterling Grant White, how to carry ourselves. Now, we were also taught this at home. Now, see, my great-grandmother and my mom, although wasn't no man in the house, always told me to make sure you dress nice. And my great-grandmother would, I didn't have money to get shoe polish. You know what she would do? Get Vaseline and clean my shoes. She said, I like to have a nice dressed man. She said, it make a difference. Now this woman, my great-grandmother, I said, she was born in slavery, but slavery ended 3 weeks after she was born. Wow. Okay? And she was 13 years old, and she walked from Georgetown, which was called Grove Point, and it's still called that by a number of individuals. And it's believed that she was raped, but her dad beat her, said it was her fault. She never went back to that area. Whoever was the dad was never mentioned to anybody who her dad was. I mean, who were the daddy of the child. So therefore, no man there. Okay. So she married my mom. Okay? But she was married to a gentleman, but he died for a short period of time. She did marry, but he died. So it was just still two women basically. But those two women really made a difference in shaping my life. Now I'm leaving out some of the story, because see, my mama worked in a nightclub for 25 years in Douglas. And she also worked at the school, the Beach High School, which is the oldest school in Savannah. She also worked at that school as a maid. My great-grandmother worked at Savannah High as a maid for 27 years. She was a lot older than people actually knew she was. And she didn't want to discuss her age, because if she did, she would not be able to continue working. And really, after she retired and went to get her Social Security, they told her that she didn't put anything in the fund because it was voluntary during that time. So therefore, if you don't put nothing, you can't get nothing out. So she had to work an additional three or 4 years to get a check for $16 a month. Okay? So
I hate to
okay,
for me. Thank you for sharing your story about, shaping, like the things that make us who we are, our people. I also tell my students all the time, make sure you talk to the old people in your family. It's priceless. And it's giving you something that you don't even know yet.
But can I just share this one statement? I'm not gonna cut you off, I'm just gonna say this. That same school that my great-grandmother worked in, the one that was born 3 weeks, born in slavery. That same school, Savannah High, I had the opportunity to graduate from when they first desegregated that school. She stood outside the Grayson Stadium and she cried. And she said, I can't believe it. She cleaned up the garments of kids that were thrown away and brought them home to me to wear. I just want to share that story because all this plays into the part of the church. And sometimes we overlook it, how the church played a major part. St. Philip grounded me, although I was there, I wasn't in there. But what I learned in St. Philip from a lot of those older individuals helped mold me to make me what I am today. In spite of what one or two people tried to block.
They try to tell you.
And that's why, and since I was a kid coming up, education has always been on the mind of my great-grandmother. That's why I was focused when I came in the ministry, that on my mind, to help other pastors, because if ministers are trained, they can revolutionize our society. That's the entity that's left out. You want to know what is wrong? Church. Church entity is left out, because if you train ministers to become more proficient in their congregation, they can help people. The voice that King had was because pastors were committed to the community, because they had a voice and they were developed, they tried to train themselves. But for some areas where training was not done, there was ministers that did not embrace training, and they tried to prevent folk from training other folk. I met that when I left ITC to come back to Savannah. And as a result, there's stigmatism that pushed aside. It still exists today in some areas. Some folk don't know why. I was also sad, but that's the reason why.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Stevens. I'm glad you're able to make it. I don't know, call it Reverend Valley, well, you go by Reverend, just Rev. I put down pastor and RN, both service, just life of service. All right, I want to thank y'all for coming. This is a wrap. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Reverend Clark, for just answering my text message all the time. Even if it was late in the evening, I didn't mind that at all. Thank you all for coming, and you are free to go.
Thank you.
I hope you will consider the meeting.